The North Sea, a maelstrom of gray, churning water where the wind howls like a banshee and the waves crash against the cliffs with the force of 1,000 hammers. This is not a place for the faint of heart. This is a place for men of iron, for men who are not afraid to look death in the eye and spit in its face. For centuries, the fishermen of the Shetland Islands have sailed these treacherous waters, their lives hanging by a thread, their fortunes tied to the whims of the sea. They were not just fishermen, they were warriors, battling the elements in small, open boats, their only weapons a handful of simple tools and an unbreakable will to survive. This is the story of those men and the tools that kept them alive. We will explore the ingenious technology that allowed them to conquer the North Sea, from the elegant and deadly Sixareen to the humble but essential Oilskin. We will delve into the techniques that they used to navigate the trackless ocean, to find the fish that sustained their families, and to return home time and time again from the brink of oblivion. These are not just museum pieces, they are the keys to understanding a lost world, a world where survival was a daily struggle, and where the line between life and death was as thin as a fishing line. These are the tools that built a nation, the tools that forged a people, the tools that tamed the most savage sea on earth. Tools to trust, skills that last. This is Bushcraft Arsenal. Number 1. The Sixareen, the Shetland six-oared boat. The heart of the Shetland fishing industry, the single most important tool in the fisherman's arsenal, was the Sixareen. This was not just a boat, it was a work of art, a masterpiece of naval architecture that was perfectly adapted to the brutal conditions of the North Sea. The Sixareen was a direct descendant of the Viking longship, a clinker-built, double-ended boat that was as beautiful as it was deadly. The Sixareen was so named because it was crewed by 6 men, each man rowing a single oar. It was a long, narrow boat, typically 25-30 feet in length, with a beam of 7 to 8 feet. It was light enough to be rowed for hours on end, yet strong enough to withstand the pounding of the North Sea waves. The first Sixareens were imported from Norway in kit form, but by the mid-19th century, Shetland boat builders were constructing their own, using imported pine and local oak. The construction of a Sixareen was a complex and painstaking process. The boat was built from the keel up, with overlapping planks, or strakes, that were fastened together with thousands of iron rivets. The frame of the boat was made from a series of curved oak ribs, or bands, which gave the boat its strength and its shape. The boat was divided into 6 compartments, or rooms, each with its own specific purpose. There was a room for the sails and tackle, a room for the ballast stones, a room for bailing, a room for the catch, and a room for the skipper. The Sixareen was a versatile vessel. It could be rowed or sailed, depending on the wind. It carried a single square sail, which was used when the wind was favorable. In a headwind, or in a calm, the crew would take to the oars, rowing for hours, sometimes days, to reach the fishing grounds or to return home. These were not pleasure cruises. They were grueling, back-breaking journeys, with the men rowing in shifts, their hands raw and bleeding, their bodies aching with fatigue. The design of the Sixareen was a masterclass in compromise. It had to be light enough to be rowed by 6 men, yet strong enough to withstand the brutal power of the North Sea. It had to be stable enough to carry a heavy load of fish, yet nimble enough to be maneuvered in tight spaces. It had to be simple enough to be built and repaired with basic tools, yet sophisticated enough to sail efficiently. The Shetland boat builders achieved this delicate balance through a combination of traditional knowledge, skilled craftsmanship, and a deep understanding of the sea. The design was a testament to the Old Norse saying, "A boat is a living thing, And the Sixareen was very much alive. It breathed with the sea, its flexible frame and clinker-built hull adapting to the rhythm of the waves, a stark contrast to the rigid, unyielding vessels of today. Number 2, the fishing gear, long lines and hand lines. The Sixareen was a formidable vessel, but it was useless without the gear to catch the fish. The Shetland fishermen used a variety of different fishing methods, but the most common was long line fishing. A single Sixareen could set up to 7 miles of line, with over 1,200 hooks. This was a massive undertaking, a complex and dangerous operation that required skill, coordination, and a great deal of courage. The long line, or back snood, was a thick, tarred rope that was anchored to the seabed at both ends. Attached to the back snood were hundreds of smaller lines, called tomes or himps, each with a baited hook at the end. The tomes were made of horsehair or thin cord, and they were attached to the back snood with a special knot that allowed them to be easily replaced. The hooks were baited with mussels, limpets, or pieces of fish. Setting the long line was a dangerous business. The line was coiled in a large basket, or scull, and it was paid out over the stern of the boat as the Sixareen sailed slowly along. The men had to work quickly and efficiently, their hands a blur of motion as they baited the hooks and attached the tomes to the back snood. A single mistake, a moment of inattention, could be disastrous. A man could easily get tangled in the line and be pulled overboard, or he could be snagged by a hook and dragged to the bottom of the sea. After the line was set, the men would wait for a few hours, and then they would begin the arduous process of hauling it back in. This was back-breaking work, with the men hauling the line in hand over hand, their muscles straining, their bodies slick with sweat and fish slime. As the line came in, the fish were unhooked and thrown into the shot room. The line was then coiled back into the scull, ready to be set again. In addition to long line fishing, the Shetland fishermen also used hand lines. A hand line was a simple but effective tool consisting of a single line with a baited hook at the end. The fisherman would hold the line in his hand and he would jig it up and down to attract the fish. When a fish took the bait, the fisherman would feel the tug on the line and he would haul it in. Hand lining was a more active and engaging way to fish, and it was often used to catch haddock and other smaller fish. It was a more intimate form of fishing, a direct connection between the fisherman and his prey. The fisherman could feel the slightest nibble, the subtle movements of the fish, and he could react accordingly. It was a skill that could not be taught. It had to be learned through years of experience, through a deep and intuitive understanding of the sea and its inhabitants. Number 3, the oilskin, the fisherman's armor. In the cold, wet, and unforgiving environment of the North Sea, staying dry was not just a matter of comfort, it was a matter of life and death. Hypothermia was a constant threat, and a wet fisherman was a dead fisherman. The Shetland fisherman's primary defense against the elements was the oilskin, a remarkable garment that was the original foul-weather gear. Oilskins were made from heavy-duty canvas that was treated with linseed oil to make it waterproof. The process of making oilskins was a closely guarded secret, a folk art that was passed down from generation to generation. The canvas was soaked in linseed oil, and then it was hung up to dry. The process was repeated several times until the canvas was completely saturated with oil. The result was a stiff, heavy, and completely waterproof garment that could withstand the worst that the North Sea could throw at it. An oilskin suit consisted of a long hooded coat and a pair of trousers. The coat was designed to be worn over a thick wool sweater, and it was cut long to provide maximum protection. The trousers were worn over a pair of thick wool trousers, and they were often tucked into a pair of sea boots. The entire ensemble was heavy, cumbersome, and uncomfortable, but it was also incredibly effective. A man in a full suit of oilskins was virtually impervious to the wind and the rain. He was a walking fortress, a self-contained ecosystem, a man who could stand on the deck of his boat in the teeth of a gale and laugh at the storm. The oilskin was more than just a piece of clothing. It was a symbol of the fisherman's defiance, his refusal to be broken by the elements. Oilskins were not just for keeping the fishermen dry, they were also for keeping them warm. The thick, oily canvas was an excellent insulator, and it trapped a layer of warm air next to the body. This was crucial in the frigid temperatures of the North Sea, where a man could freeze to death in a matter of minutes. The oilskin was the fisherman's armor, his shield against the elements, his first and last line of defense against the cold and the wet. Number 4, the navigation tools, compass and sextant. The Shetland fishermen were not just fishermen, they were also master navigators. They had to be. They were sailing in some of the most dangerous and unforgiving waters in the world, and a single mistake could be fatal. They did not have the benefit of modern technology, no GPS, no radar, no electronic charts. They had to rely on their skill, their experience, and a handful of simple but effective navigation tools. The most important of these tools was the compass. The compass was a simple device, but it was the key to navigating the trackless ocean. It allowed the fishermen to maintain a steady course, even in the thickest of fog or the darkest of nights. The compass was a precious and jealously guarded instrument, and it was the responsibility of the skipper to keep it safe and in good working order. In addition to the compass, the Shetland fishermen also used a sextant. A sextant is a doubly reflecting navigation instrument that measures the angular distance between two visible objects. It was used to measure the angle of the sun, the moon, and the stars above the horizon. By measuring the angle of these celestial bodies, the fishermen could determine their latitude, their position north or south of the equator. This was a complex and difficult process, but it was essential for long-distance navigation. The Shetland fishermen were also masters of dead reckoning, the art of estimating your position based on your course and your speed. They had an intimate knowledge of the tides and the currents, and they could use this knowledge to calculate their position with surprising accuracy. They also had a deep and abiding respect for the power of the sea, and they knew that even the most skilled navigator was no match for a North Sea storm. They were not arrogant men, they were humble men, men who understood their place in the grand scheme of things. They knew that the sea could give, and they knew that the sea could take away. And they accepted this with a quiet dignity, a stoic resignation that was born of a lifetime of living on the edge. Number 5, the Shetland Knife, the fisherman's friend. In the harsh and demanding world of the Shetland fishermen, a good knife was not a luxury. It was a necessity. It was a tool, a weapon, and a lifesaver, all rolled into one. The Shetland knife, or tully, was a simple but effective tool, a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the men who used them. The tully was a fixed-blade knife, with a blade that was typically 4 to 6 inches in length. The blade was made from high-carbon steel, which was easy to sharpen and held an edge well. The handle was made from a variety of different materials, including wood, bone, and horn. The handle was often decorated with intricate carvings, a reflection of the pride that the fishermen took in their tools. The tully was a versatile tool, and it was used for a wide variety of tasks. It was used for cutting bait, for gutting fish, for mending nets, and for 1,001 other tasks around the boat. It was also a weapon, a last line of defense against the dangers of the sea. A man who fell overboard could use his tully to cut himself free from a tangled line or to fight off a curious shark. The tully was the fisherman's friend, his constant companion, his most trusted and reliable tool. Number 6. Food and drink. Oatcakes, bannocks, and bland. Life at sea was a constant battle against hunger and thirst. The Shetland fishermen could not afford to carry a large supply of fresh food and water, so they had to rely on a simple but effective diet of preserved foods and locally sourced drinks. Their diet was not glamorous, but it was enough to keep them alive and working in the most demanding of conditions. The staple of the fisherman's diet was the oatcake, a hard, dry biscuit made from oatmeal, water, and salt. Oatcakes were easy to make. They kept for a long time, and they were a good source of slow-release energy. The fishermen would eat oatcakes with a piece of dried fish, or they would crumble them into a bowl of hot soup. Another staple was the bannock, a type of flatbread that was cooked on a griddle over an open fire. Bannocks were often made with a mixture of oatmeal and barley flour, and they were a welcome change from the hard, dry oatcakes. To wash down their food, the fishermen would drink bland, a fermented whey drink that was a byproduct of the cheese-making process. Bland was a sour, fizzy drink, an acquired taste, but it was a good source of vitamins and minerals, and it was a welcome alternative to the brackish water that was often all that was available at sea. The fishermen would also drink tea, which they would brew over a small, smoky fire in the bottom of the boat. Tea was a luxury, but it was a welcome comfort in the cold, wet, and miserable conditions of the North Sea. Number 7. The community, the unseen tool. Perhaps the most important survival tool that the Shetland fishermen carried was not a physical object, but something far more powerful, their community. The fishing industry was not a solitary pursuit. It was a collective effort, a complex and interconnected web of relationships that bound the entire community together. From the men who built the boats to the women who baited the lines, everyone had a role to play. This sense of community, this shared sense of purpose, was the invisible thread that held the fabric of Shetland society together. The crew of a Sixareen was a band of brothers, a tight-knit unit that had to work together seamlessly to survive. They were often related by blood or by marriage, and they had a deep and abiding trust in one another. They had to. Their lives depended on it. In the chaos of a North Sea storm, with the wind howling and the waves crashing over the gunwales, there was no room for argument or indecision. The skipper's word was law, and every man knew his job and did it without question. But the community extended far beyond the confines of the boat. The women of Shetland were the unsung heroes of the fishing industry. They were the ones who baited the thousands of hooks, a tedious and back-breaking task that had to be done with speed and precision. They were the ones who processed the fish when the boats returned, gutting, cleaning, and salting the catch. They were the ones who kept the home fires burning, who raised the children, and who waited day after day for the return of their men. The dangers of the half fishing were ever present. The Gloop disaster of 1881, when 10 boats and 58 men were lost in a sudden storm, was a stark reminder of the fragility of life on the North Sea. But even in the face of such tragedy, the community endured. They mourned their dead, they comforted the widows and the orphans, and they carried on. They had to. The sea was their life, and they would not be defeated by it. Conclusion: these are the tools that kept the Shetland fishermen alive. But they are more than just tools. They are a testament to the courage, the skill, and the indomitable spirit of the men who used them. They are a reminder of a time when survival was a daily struggle, and when the line between life and death was as thin as a fishing line. The Sixareen, the long line, the oilskin, the compass, the sextant, the tully. These were the tools that allowed the Shetland fishermen to conquer the North Sea, to build a nation, and to forge a legacy that endures to this day. What do you think is the most impressive tool in the Shetland fisherman's arsenal? Let me know in the comments below. And for more stories of survival at sea, be sure to check out our videos on the Aleut sea hunters and the ill-fated Shackleton expedition. See you in the next episode.